Welcome back to the lab where Glenn should be working on customers' cars and is not again. Once again, we're working on this stupid little race car that just costs a whole lot of money and puts smiles on people's faces though. So in the previous video, that made good power on the old dynamometer. 772 horsepower to be precise, or 575 kilowatts at the hubs. So people are going to start an internet argument about rolling roads and all that. Don't care. That's what it did. I've told you exactly what it was on. I've shown you what it was on. That's what it's made. And if you want to decrease that value by whatever because you don't believe it, I don't care. That's what it did. But as they say, but wait, there's more. Back here where all the noisy things are, there's been some discussion about the exhaust pipes on this for some time in the background, not so much on the internet. You guys haven't really said anything at all that I can think of. It's a 2.5-inch system on each side. Now, to be fair, is, I mean, size of my hand there, it's about as long as your arm. It's really quite short. There's not much to it on each side, but graphs and charts and science and stuff and numbers and everywhere you look, it kind of indicates that that's probably a wee bit small for pumping out. If you do the math, that's a 950 horsepower motor there, solid 900 at least. Based on 23% drivetrain loss, 772 horsepower at the hubs. Do your math, that's where we're at. So regardless, even if it's only 770 horsepower, that's quite a lot to be pumping through a twin 2.5-inch exhaust system. We, in the video you'll see the second to last run or something. Did I leave it there? I walked over to the dyno and the number had gone down. What we did there was we advanced the spark timing, so the engine goes this way, so you would advance your timing this way a little bit, to make it a little bit more power, and it went slightly less because there's less heat going into the exhaust, right? And less, all the fiery, bangy, make it go fast things all happen inside the motor, and there's not much left coming out, so then the turbos don't spool as hard, and it actually lost a tiny little bit of boost. So we could have chased that further, and brought the boost back up, and it would have probably made the 800 horsepower at the hubs that we sort of thought we might do with a slight tweak. However, we can see that there is some restriction in, see the turbine size, the housing size, or the exhaust pipes, or both. There's also some debate about the intake system, but I'm not going to change that because the engine bay gets stinking hot because there's no radiator and intercooler at the front of it to get cold air in there. That's why there's big holes in the side here to try and get cold air in that way. But it gets really hot in here, and if we don't have a decent cold air intake system, you just suck in hot air and that's all over. You just lose power straight away. So that has to stay. Too bad, not changing it. So there. The exhaust, however, so that's 3-inch now. So I made these yesterday. See, look, there's perf tube, and there's the steel wool that goes inside them. So I made these. They're not very big outside diameter compared to the inside diameter, but they are a muffler resonator thing of sorts. Basically the same size as what's in the car. Some bellows, 3-inch bellows. Now I believe this is, if there's a restriction in the exhaust system, it's coming from the bellows. Because you can see on this one, this is 3-inch one. See that tube on the inside? See how that's a smaller diameter? See that? Because it has to go inside that other one, which is inside the main 3-inch diameter. I'll bet you it looks really bad on here. It's not as bad in person, but through the camera lens, that looks really bad as. If we measure this, that's going to be significantly smaller than a piece of 3-inch pipe. Let's do it, actually. Everyone's going to hate me because now I'm going to do it in millimeters, so I'm talking inches and then millimeters and stuff, and it's going to really confuse some people. 70.16. Oh look, here's a trick. If we zero this, let's get it in the camera. 0. Oh, I turned it off. There you go, get it right. So that's the nominal size inside there, right? So now when we put this in here, I'll get it right eventually, and we shift that out, this is now going to tell us we don't have to do any math. It's going to tell us what the difference is. There you go, 2.7 millimeters smaller. It's actually a little bit less than what I thought it would be. Oh, because that fits inside there, right? Very hard to see. It's not as bad as I thought. Bloody hell. Never mind, we'll carry on anyway. And there will be no sense in leaving the 2.5 inch bellows off the turbos and then going 3-inch exhaust later. So there you go. What you assume isn't always right, and then you measure it. And that might be the case with this whole deal. Everyone might be assuming that 3-inch is going to go better. We might put it on there and it might not. That would suck, wouldn't it? Getting there, I mean, that's probably more than half the exhaust system done, isn't it? There's the original ones there. Now, I weighed some things, because we do. That's what I do. Bit of tube versus a bit of 2.5 or 3-inch tube versus 2.5-inch tube, and gave us a ballpark guesstimation of the weight penalty for going to a 3-inch exhaust over a 2.5. It's about 800 grams. Now, we could probably do the math pretty easily on that. Off the top of my head, it might be a little bit difficult, but we've got pretty close to 800 horsepower and 1200 kgs. So there's almost 3 kgs per 2 horsepower. So if we've only got 800 grams extra, we only need to have, gosh, this is hard on my head, half a horsepower. If we gain half a horsepower, we're all right. It will go faster than what it does now. That's my ballpark figure off the top of my head. Do the math if you like, but that's pretty close to it. So to look at them initially when I picked them up, I thought, crikey, these are heavy, and these seemed light. And they seem light because there's a bit more to them, right? They got the bit on the end and hanging off there. So it's a bigger thing. So a bigger thing that weighs the same as a smaller thing. The smaller thing always appears to be heavier. So these are just about the perfect length already. All it really needs to happen is that needs to go on there on the appropriate angle and be trimmed off to the correct angle here, and a little bit of pipe. Then we have to do some adjustment on the thing up in here. It's quite handy, quite clever, the person that did this, because you can take the whole diffuser off and leave this behind, and you can have these exhaust tips here, and you can figure out where it all needs to go. Now these are designed so the 2.5-inch pipe fits inside those, and as you can see it's clean at the end there, and then it gets dirtier as it goes through. The idea is as the gas is blasting through here, it pulls some of the air out of the engine bay and cools these down and gets some airflow going in the engine bay. You cool these down because we've got carbon fibre sitting right up hard up against it, so I don't really want to absolutely bake that. Seems to be holding up fine. A little bit of it needs a clean, doesn't it? So hopefully tomorrow we've got some flanges being cut in town, laser cut, to go on here. They should be done tomorrow, and also my fancy exhaust brackets that I've got there on these ones, those there that I made, there'll be some of those done to suit that size pipe. And then if we get those things tomorrow, there should be no reason why we can't have this all smashed out tomorrow and on the car and running. And then we've got to find some time to get it back on the dyno and see if we can knock out that big number for you. This is very quickly turning into a very expensive exhaust, but it's going to look cool, if nothing else. Well, it won't take long and it's going to look a bit like that anyway, right? But in the meantime, so right hand side, the bellows will be fine because we're dealing with 1/2 inch bigger tube, and then that creates longer length. And on the left hand side, that's going to be a bit of an issue. So the left hand side has got a custom modified bellows. Chopped it down, made it smaller, and welded it back together. Not recommended, that's actually still hot. not recommended to touch that either. These are actually made from double layers, the actual bellows part of it, in case you wanted to know how they're constructed. Probably almost impossible to see it through the camera. You might be able to figure it out just from that angle you can see there. That's actually two pieces, one on top of the other. I could jam a screwdriver in there and separate it. There you go, you can see it. When it was focused, you could see it there. It's too hard. Oh, there it is, see? 2 layers. Anyway, so that got cut and shortened because on the left-hand side, having it this long like this just wasn't going to fit. That's the left-hand side there. There's quite a bit more real estate required with the transition from the flange to the 3-inch diameter pipe. That's still hot. Idiot. It's not that bad, see. Look, I'd be screaming if it was that bad. But chop that down, do this, and it's pretty good. It's not the most prettiest thing in the world. It's not too bad. It's actually smoother than it looks. And that should be significantly better than these arrangements here as far as getting gases out of the turbo. It's got to be better. It does weigh more. Did I mention in the video yesterday? So it's like 800 grams heavier, and we need 0.5 horsepower to make it go same speed if we worry about just flat out power to weight acceleration stuff and nothing else aside from traction and all that sort of carry on and cornering and braking. This is like an IKEA kit set for clamps. So I'll get these laser cut. That's a bigger version of those ones that are on there, and then I have to drill holes in them, put bolts in them, all that sort of stuff, but they let me keep the scrap, which is good. So I think they just couldn't be bothered knocking them out of there, but that's cool. I don't care. It looks awesome and it gives me something fun to do. These I made an extra pair, so if you need these I can sell them a lot cheaper than the ones that are out there at the moment. Let's go see if this is actually physically possible. What a mess. To fit this in the car now that it's bigger and tighter. I think it's going to be an issue by the time we stick the piece on the end that goes around the corner there. It's going to be really hard to get this in the car. Well, that certainly took more than a minute or two. I'm sure I've built full exhaust systems start to finish faster than that. I did spend a little bit more time and effort trying to make the welding look pretty. I don't know if that's a great example. Yeah, it's probably better than that one. Yeah, that's probably nicer than the other ones. It certainly looks pretty sitting there. It looks a little bit awkward maybe in the car. It's not really a thing. I reckon what I'm doing is taking a slice out of the bottom of this longitudinally along the tube and then squishing it down, welding it up. Just make it 5 or 10 mils smaller diameter than those aluminium tubes that are sitting on the floor way over there by that poor 300ZX that's screaming out for me to work on it. Those, make it 5 or 10 mils smaller than those and smash it all back together. Can we go smaller again? Yeah, there we go. And get it in there. So I've just put the O2 sensor ports there, they welded on there. They're steel. These ones are stainless. Some people reckon don't use stainless because the sensors can seize in there. They never did. After 7 years so far, I never had a problem with that. But anyway, those are steel because they're off the shelf and I can't be bothered making them again out of stainless, and I'm certainly not going to pull them out of there because I want to try and keep these tucked away somewhere in case this is an abortion and I want to put it back to 2.5 inch. Which is why I decided against modifying those tubes that are over there. So at this point, chop, squish, weld, make sure they're flat, those ones, and get it all in the car. She's taken a while to get this done. We're getting there. Well, I'm getting there. Got that far. So we need a little bit more on the pipe, obviously, to come into here. Probably, I'd say about, what's it, 100 mils. We need at least 100 mils into here. and it needs to be a smaller diameter. So it's going to be quite the challenge to reduce the diameter of this just a tiny little bit. We want about sort of 5 mils clearance around the outside of that. The idea being that as the gases come through here, rip-roaring through here at a billion zillion miles an hour, they'll draw some cooled air from in the engine bay through here to keep this at a sensible temperature so we don't nuke our piece of carbon fibre there too much. It has worked so far with the 2.5-inch exhaust through there. These are just a little bit bigger than 3-inch aluminium pieces. You can run aluminium exhaust pipes on things like dragsters and stuff. I'm not sure how it's going to last on a circuit racing car, but anyway. Looks like there's heaps of room. In some places there kind of is. In other places, like sneaking under here without having too much of an angle, because you've got to go over the top of the CV joint there. There isn't a lot of room, because obviously the more you stand that vertical to get more clearance between the bit in front of it and the bit behind it underneath it, the taller that needs to be, and the longer the pipe needs to be, and the more weight and the more resistance to gas flow and all that. This side's worse. I didn't think that would actually go in the car. I thought that would take disassembly of the vehicle to get this thing in and out, because it only just fitted with 2.5, and it involved quite a bit of pushing and pulling on various different things, and there'll be, I don't know if you can see, there's a bit of scratching going on up here and a bit of clearancing happened in the past, but it does still fit. Just, I probably will get up here with the die grinder and piss off all the neighbours and whip 5 mils off the bottom of here, and that'll enable it to come in and out without risk of personal injury. This better sound good because it's taken a lot more time than I expected. At least it looks all right. Is that a hole? No, there's just a bit of crud sitting in the bottom of it, making it look like a hole. See, it's gone now. Oh, depends on the angle you sit at. It's not a hole. Not big enough to be a problem if it is. Yeah, better sound good, and it better make a decent amount of horsepower. It needs to make half a horsepower more to make up for its own weight and sheer acceleration, ignoring cornering forces and all that. Let's say if it makes 5 more horsepower, then we've definitely improved things. Right. I guess I could chop these over. I could make, it's Sunday now, I could make bigger ones of those, 4-inch or something, 3.5, and then I don't have to muck around with pipe. And just chop out the holes in there a bit bigger. We'll see how I feel after lunch. It is very close to 5 o'clock. It's safe to say I've had a guts full of this today. I've been out here since 9 and I haven't really stopped. Big job. If I thought it was going to take as long as it's taken, I probably would have just said, nah, you're right. Flag that. Oh, why didn't I get that angle there the same as that? The feng shui is all wrong. I'll have to fix that. I know that one's different too. Can't do much about it actually with the screw spacing. That's good. I'm happy with that. It's fine. She said beauty. Got the angle of the dangle on those O2 sensors improved. Haven't actually put the digital inclinometer across those resonators, but I reckon that's pretty good. And nice and square to the chassis. So while we're at it, there's just been some improvements. While I'm mucking around, I've just tidied up some things that just not quite right. Most people probably didn't notice, but I did, and it was annoying me. I'm going to swap those bolts around the other way so that the nylock nuts are on the other side, because they are pretty close to that resonator muffler dooflicky thingy, and they might get a little bit toasty there. I could potentially build a little heat shield. Come off this bolt and this one down here, or this one and this one, and just put something in between, but it's pretty close tolerance there, pretty tight fit, so anything's just gonna make it too tight potentially. As per that, this is very tight, very close fit. I found some tube actually that's the right size. Did I say earlier? I've forgotten now. To go over this, so I'm just going to make this bigger, make these pieces that go over here bigger, so that I have to elongate our two slightly asymmetrical holes there. I'll see if I can get that a little bit closer. And I suppose you want to hear it. It's just about 5 o'clock, so I can't run it for too long, but let's fire it up. Just lowered the hoist down a little bit so I don't have to climb over too much. Full disclosure, I did start it earlier on, ran it for 30 seconds or something like that. Maybe not even that. You see the water temp's not even there. 24, ambient air temp's 25. Starts alright. Yeah, she's a bit noisier. I think it's fair to say obnoxious mode has been engaged. That's right, we need it to make the horsepower. Take on those fellas at roll racing. I wonder if I can reach in there. How noisy is it? Yeah, it's pretty noisy. Don't worry, there's maybe about 2,500 RPM there. That wouldn't have been much higher than that. It'll rev limit while it's warming up to, I think it's 3,000 or something like that. It'll just cut. You can't rev it any higher than that till it's got some temperature in it. And as it gets warmer, it comes up. Not very good for a motor doing that, running it for short periods of time, but too bad. It gets enough of that. It's probably done loads of damage to it over the years, but we're getting away with it so far. Fingers crossed. That'll do. I'm going to make those tubes tomorrow. Inside some junk food and a cold drink. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Next video, might be this going back on dyno and we go for 1,000 horsepowers at the motor. 1,000 bhp. 800 at the hubs would be the target. We were 772 or something. I'm sure I saw 785 earlier on, but it's not there. That run was deleted for whatever reason. It probably made really good peak and really crap everywhere else, so it was tookenerized away. And that'll be enough. That's actually way too much for super lap and that. I think that's probably too much power, but for roll racing and drag racing, I don't know if I'll do any more drag racing, but roll racing, all the power we can get. All right, thanks for watching. Cheers, boy.